Good evening, San Diego. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carlene Chavis, and thank you for tuning in for your CBS 8 Plus weather update. Well, temperatures were not as hot as yesterday, but hey, they were still hot. We were feeling some heat out there, and we had less records broken than we had comparing yesterday to today. But hey, we were still talking about some records out there as we were holding on to those widespread 90s, especially east of the 15. It brought in some heat that broke previous records that were in the 80s for Ramona as well as for Campo for this day, and tied the record at 94 degrees. That was set back on this day in 1986 for Borrego Springs. So feeling the heat out there. And when it came to our daytime highs, well, as mentioned, widespread with those 90s east of the 15. We also had 90 degrees for Fallbrook, 94 degrees today for Escondido and for Valley Center. You were still warmer than usual with widespread 80s across the coastal communities. Also saw that for downtown as well as for Chula Vista. 80 degrees was the high today for Julian. So temperatures took only a little bit of a slip for today, and we're going to feel more cooler temperatures in the forecast. So cooling finally getting back to seasonal by next week. Now we are still going to be above seasonal over the next couple of days, but it's definitely going to be a noticeable change in the air. Let's talk about changes in the air, because when you have a big ridge of high pressure, it brings in a whole lot of heat. Then we get into the overnight hours. We're prone to a marine layer here in San Diego County. And so we are looking at a shallow one. That means confining most of that cloud cover as well as the dense fog right along the coast, and especially for the 5 through tomorrow morning. So dense fog advisory going into effect. That will last all the way until 9 tomorrow morning. Visibility down to a quarter of a mile or less. I've already seen it coming down. That's been for Imperial Beach, and we're going to continue to see that favor the coastal communities as well as metro cities. If you do encounter this fog as you're driving around, just keep in mind to just use your regular your low beam lights, your headlights, because if you use those high beams, it creates this big white wall and makes it very difficult for you to see as well as people around you. So use your headlights, just don't put on the high beams, and leave enough distance between you and the vehicle in front of you. More expansive view across the west, as mentioned, area of high pressure. It brought in the heat for today, and we're seeing a series of low pressure systems that are just towards the east as well as towards the west. You have a massive area of low pressure that's impacting across the east coast, bringing in some scattered showers. We have this low that is bringing in some snow for North Dakota, but that is going to dig a little bit more towards the south, and as a result, that weakens our ridge of high pressure, but it's still going to be around as we go into the next few days. But because we had this strong ridge for today, we're still locked into the heat. One thing that has changed up in the forecast is we still had a breeze out there, but it wasn't Santa Ana winds. It was onshore flow. And so as a result, temperatures came down just by a degree or two. It wasn't very strong, but it was breezy at times. Also still sitting under this ridge of high pressure keeps some of that heat above seasonal over the next few days, even though those temperatures are going to slip because it's not going to have such a strong hold on us. So you'll see what I'm talking about coming up in your extended forecast. For your overnight lows, widespread 50s across the county. We were in the 60s this morning. You're talking about the 50s to get Friday morning started. Last day of the month, also talking about Halloween. You will have an overnight low of 48 degrees for Ramona, 66 degrees for Borrego Springs, and you have those 50s right there across the mountains. When we look at our daytime highs for tomorrow, so we've been sitting in the low 80s for the coast. Well, now you're talking about getting back into those low 70s, also upper 60s, and that's going to be for the coastal communities right along North County coastline. And then for downtown, you're looking at 70 degrees for tomorrow. Widespread 80s, getting away from those widespread 90s we've had for daytime highs over the past couple of afternoons. We're looking at 83 degrees for Valley Center, the same for Ramona, 77 degrees expected for La Mesa. So our daytime highs will be widespread in the 70s right along the coast, and you're talking about 80s across the inland valleys. Once we have the sun go down, well, that's going to change things up a little bit more. That's when we become a little bit more uniform with our cooler temperatures. So your sunset for tomorrow will be about 2 minutes before 6, but these temperatures reflect the 7 o'clock hour when you're getting away from those final rays of the sun and talking about dusk. So we get into about 7 o'clock. We're looking at widespread 60s in the forecast, clear skies for Escondido as well as for La Mesa, starting to see a few more clouds rolling in for downtown Oceanside and for Chula Vista. That ridge of high pressure, as I mentioned, it weakens its strong hold starting tomorrow. So that area of low pressure that I previously showed you that was right over North Dakota bringing in some snow, that moves a little bit more towards the south. So as a result, it pushes that ridge a little bit more towards the west. So it's not going to be as strong of a hold. So getting away from those 90s that we had back into the 80s. But as mentioned, still above seasonal for this time of the year, advertiser around the 70s. Now we will have this area of high pressure still lingering around in our forecast as we go all the way into the weekend. And then by next week, more of a dip in the jet stream brings in some cooler air, triggering a stronger onshore push with our winds and pushing in that marine layer a little bit more inland. So as a result, we will have temperatures that will be cooling west of the mountains and well across much of the county. When we look at our surf forecast, about 3 to 4 feet with sets up to 5 feet and also a moderate risk of rip currents at our local beaches. Keep in mind this weekend, we also have daylight saving time ending. As a result, you have to set those clocks back by 1 hour. I know most of our phones do it, cars do it, but if you're like me, you have a microwave that doesn't do it. You have also an oven that doesn't do it. So go ahead and set those clocks back by 1 hour before you go to bed. It's also a good time to change the batteries in your smoke detectors as well as your carbon monoxide detectors. And we're also going to be having a new sunrise and sunset time. So for Sunday, our sunrise will be at 6:07 in the morning, and then we lose that hour in the evening. So we will have a new sunset on Sunday about 4 minutes before 5. When we look at the extended forecast, we're back into those low 70s, looking at the fog developing by Friday night through Saturday morning as well. Low 70s stick around for the coast, and then you get back into those upper 60s starting on Monday. When we look at the inland valleys, you're holding on to those widespread 80s in the forecast all the way through Sunday, and then you get right back to seasonal. You're back into those 70s, 78 degrees by Monday. We take that all the way into Thursday of next week. You have the 70s for the mountains over the next few days, and even into next week, we have the low 70s, so there is an adjustment with onshore flow picking up. You have widespread 90s in the forecast for the desert all the way through Monday. You're back into the 80s starting on Tuesday. I hope you have a great night, and thanks for tuning in.